We're here at the Walt Disney Featured Animation Research Library, which is easily the largest animation library in the world. It's here that the Walt Disney Company stores the artifacts of its animation legacy, dating back to the earliest Disney animation projects. There are still many diehards who call this collection the Morgue, and that name was certainly more appropriate many years ago, when this priceless material was rather haphazardly stored in the basement of the old ink and paint building on the Disney Studio lot in Burbank. Today, this treasure trove is housed in a state-of-the-art facility, where its curators tend to the collection using the utmost museum-quality care and latest archival methods. The Animation Research Library, or ARL as it's called by its users, is not open to the public, but we've gotten clearance to visit there now and meet with a couple of Disney's younger veteran animators to discuss perhaps Disney's greatest animation asset, Mickey Mouse. We'll learn how these two artists became the most recent interpreters of Mickey during his latest cartoon comeback. Here are Henn and Andreas Deja.
Well, hi there.
Hello.
Hello. What's the first film you each worked on?
Actually, the very first film that I worked on, I was an in-betweener assistant on Fox and the Hound when I started. But the first film that I animated on was Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Oh, wow. So you really got your baptism of fire with Mickey.
I always thought that was kind of a really unique situation. My first animation at the Walt Disney Studios was Mickey Mouse. I've always held that as a...
And for you, Andreas?
I started on a feature in 1980, and that was The Black Cauldron. And I remember working with Tim Burton for a whole year, just filling boards with the characters and setups and designs, and then started animating the film.
And when did you first encounter Mickey?
A few years later, we were doing Who Framed Roger Rabbit in London. And so since I was the Disney guy in London over there, working over there, they asked me if I wouldn't mind doing it. And I remember my first scene and how intimidating that was, because here's this character who the whole world knows, and you want to do a good job, and you just question yourself a lot. It was intimidating.
How do you approach doing Mickey Mouse? Where do you begin? For me,
I've always had kind of I felt like a real kinship with Mickey as a character, as a personality, and I always thought that he was a pretty easy fit. You know, good guy, all-American kind of a person that I kind of always identified with. And like Andrea said, it was a little intimidating. I always used to laugh and think, you know, Mickey has some big shoes to fill, you know, stepping in to animate him. He's very open that way, where you can just kind of step in, that there's a room to kind of be yourself within that personality.
Now, Ward Kimball has often said that one of the problems with Mickey was that as animation got more sophisticated, Mickey became more problematic because his design was so odd. He had these round globes on top of his head. Were they flat? Were they round? How did they move? What happened when you turned his head? Where did the ears go? Did you have to deal with all of those things and answer those questions?
Many times have told people Mickey is very easy to draw badly. So it's a very subtle line to, you know, getting those ears just in the right place. There's a lot of fudging, animation fudging that you can get away with, that you kind of have to get away with. Like, you know, the nose, how does that work when it turns, and the ears kind of rotate around, but
we don't quite know why that works.
It does.
You know, you just know it does work, and you keep them always round, they never turn, and you keep that nose upward, you know, in profile and flat in a straight-on view, and these are just graphic cheats that just work.
Yeah, it's just trying to maintain the kind of the icon quality of the look of Mickey, I suppose. That's kind of important. But his simplicity is part of, I think, the beauty of animating him, because he kind of gets back to the basics of animation.
That is one appealing character. Maybe it's because of the roundness. There are no really sharp corners, you know. He's pleasing to look at. I just remember when I was a kid seeing Mickey Mouse cartoons on TV in black and white. I just couldn't believe of what a magnetism that really was. You just couldn't take your eye from this round, wonderful character.
Do you have some favorites from Mickey's career? Are there certain moments or scenes or entire films that you're especially fond of? I'll ask each of you.
One of my all-time favorites is actually The Brave Little Tailor. And the acting in that is superb. I mean, he seems so real there. There's real weight and real feeling and acting. I just love it.
But I would also go to the pointer as one short that I know I had looked at many times.
A true pointer will take his position and not move under any circumstances. Get that, Fiddle?
But then the other thing that I always think of, and when I think of Mickey, of course, is Sorcerers. That's one of his crowning achievements as a film actor.
Yeah, no question of that. Well, let's look at some of the animation you folks did here. Let's start with you, Mark. This is from Mickey's Christmas Carol. What is the scene here, do you know?
I remember this. It's like opening up a yearbook sometimes. But this was Mickey at the Tiny Tim's graveside. And so this was one of those scenes that you just like, you get it in your head and somewhere it falls out of your elbow. You just can't get it on the paper quite the right way the first time. But this is Mickey, Ghost of Christmas Future, at the graveside, and he has Tiny Tim's crutch. And it's just no dialogue, just the emotion of the moment, and Mickey's just kind of saying goodbye. As simple as he is, I mean, there's a lot of room for expressiveness. He's a very, in acting standards, I think a very versatile actor, kind of a Tom Hanks of the cartoon world, if you will.
What do we have here?
Well, let's see. I think if I remember correctly, this was in the counting office, and Mickey is, I think, kind of explaining to Scrooge about, or asking for a day off or something. But he's down on the ground here, and as he kind of, Scrooge is kind of giving him the evil eye, he kind of backs up, takes a hold of his stool. He hops up here, sits in his chair, and then rather quickly and sheepishly turns back to his desk and starts, back to work, so that Scrooge isn't any madder at him than he already is. So that's what's happening in this scene here.
So again, it's always a combination of the facial gestures and the body English.
Absolutely. We don't always realize it, but we all act, it's from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. It's a whole body thing, and particularly in animation because it has to read. We talk about readability, and that's just being able to, read the silhouette and the staging of the drawing so that the emotion and the ideas are coming across clearly that way.
Now for you, it was Prince and the Pauper that gave you a real chance to work with Mickey.
It was a lot of fun to work on because he was in a dual role. Actually, we had Mickey twice. So we had one real Mickey and one character who looked like Mickey but acted differently. But this is sort of a scene that I enjoyed doing, even though I had to do it a few times over. It was interesting because there would have been several ways to do this scene, as there actually always is. But the story point here was that he is lost in this big castle. And he's just in awe of the big walls and how expensive everything looks, because he's a poor guy. And he sees his reflection in the shiny floor. So we decided that he should sort of play with that, whether he should do a little ice skating dance on the shining floor, but he would have to end up hitting some armor, which then falls down. So I animated him one way where he's ice skating, and that looked silly, and then doing a crazy dance, and that didn't work. And then I just did this little hop, again, talking about subtlety, this little dance, and he was singing, "I'm just a little guy," and then he's losing his balance, and then he hits the armor. It took me several versions, but sometimes it does to get it right. And these are scenes that you actually act out in front of the mirror because you don't quite know what kind of steps am I doing here, and how are the feet going to animate, and you go in front of the mirror and really do this and watch your shoulders, and you can put that into your little character.
There's no model from real life otherwise. You can't study him in the zoo. That's not going to do you any good.
There's no Mickey Mouse.
And there is no Mickey Mouse, exactly. And there's only Mickey Mouse as you interpret him.
Since he is a humanized mouse, you can act it out yourself and take points, from your own mirror image sometimes.
Now, how do you do a false Mickey? How do you do a Mickey that looks like Mickey but doesn't act like Mickey?
You just have to think of somebody else. You draw the same thing, but you think of a different type. So, of course, that character will walk differently. He has maybe a longer stride. And the prince was very cocky anyway, so he would have his arms folded and he would be very, very confident. He was in his own castle. And Mickey would be all very shy, and his body attitude would be very different. So it was kind of fun to explore that.
What did you like best about animating Mickey?
The weight and the believability in the character, that's what I wanted. Because you've seen a lot of scenes, people try the character and he looks light and fluffy and it doesn't have weight, and you didn't want to go there. You want to make him real. And it just takes a lot of analyzing. It was also fun before you get started to do your homework and study old shorts. And then the question always comes up, well, which Mickey are we going to use in this film? Because you have the early 30s, and the version changed in the late 30s, early 40s, and so forth. And my favorite always has been the few shorts that followed right after They Opened the Eyes, when he had real pupils all of a sudden, and all the shorts that followed. So that's the model that we were trying to do, and because he became so refined looking, everything was worked out, and the animators felt so comfortable drawing him then.
See, I love the Brave Little Tailor Mickey, where there's just that mass of white and the two eyes.
That actually has its own vintage charm, you know, and of course the animation is beautiful anyway.
Don't move! I got you covered.
I think from our generation, we're so worried because we've got this huge backlog of what's gone ahead of us that has set the bar. Yeah, it's set the bar so high, and now we're part of that.
You know, also the fascinating thing is looking at different animators' work. You find out when you study it that they all had their own approach. So there really aren't any set rules, and this is the only way to animate. Like you study a Frank Thomas scene, for example, you wouldn't find many charts, because Frank would pretty much do all the drawings himself. Milt Kahl's scene is very technically broken down, and you can really analyze it very, very easily. And then Ollie has his own approach. His drawings, for once, are very light. He just sort of touches the paper and has a very easygoing approach. They're all different, and I think they were all able to bring their personal touch, you know, into this whole field of animation.
What do you think when you look at some of these drawings? I mean, it is a different approach to animation, obviously, than you take, and you both studied animation, which these fellows never really had a chance to do. They studied art, but they learned animation on the job.
They invented it.
They invented animation. It's pretty well true, isn't it? So tell me some of your thoughts as you see these drawings.
Well, to me, they are just so much fun to look at, because even in their limited draftsmanship, at that time, we're talking the early 30s here, they're already doing such a genuine job. The rules of perspective, for example, are figured out in a really simple way. The way the hat sits on Mickey's head here, I think it's absolutely beautiful. And even though these are very simple, almost stick figure-like drawing, but there's real volume in them. You can really feel a roundness in them.
You know, we're looking at our history of animation here. It's just neat to see it in its purest, simplest form. And knowing that, particularly here with Plain Crazy, that Iwerks literally drew it all himself. And I've read stories where he would, you know, it would be unheard of for any of us to try to do a short or not to mention a feature on our own, but you know, he would do that. I mean, he was kind of a one-man band as far as that goes, but there's just such honesty, just, you know, just simple, you know, lines of action and fun. I think you could really tell that as an artist that he really enjoyed what he was doing.
And there's real life in every drawing. That's what astonishes me always, is there's such vitality in these drawings.
That's what Mark Davis, one of the great Disney animators, I don't think he ever animated Mickey, but he said when you were working for Walt Disney, you were asked to bring things to life. And you really have to think about that, what that means, because I think a lot of animators think that they're doing that, but they really aren't. They might be just doing a technical job, but I think it has a lot more to do with understanding the character and really adding your personal feelings to the character.
When you go back and look at a scene for research or for fun, what do you notice? What do you notice that triggers a thought process in you, or perhaps inspires you, or in some way educates you?
It's probably something that you notice that you have never thought of, something that is so beautifully done that you think, I can never do this, or I can't do this yet, so you want to find out about it, so you study it.
Do you get actual tips? Can you figure out pointers for yourself just by looking at the drawings, or do they not tell you the whole story because you don't know the process?
I think certain mechanics of animation. I mean, there's kind of a mechanical craftsman side of animation. There's some principles that we've all learned and try to adhere to. Yeah, and you find that, yeah, there aren't any true right or wrong approaches. It's the end is what, you know, is the important thing in the performance. And And so, you know, which means there's room for Andreas's way of doing it and my way of doing it and all the rest of us. And as long as, you know, we're all aiming for the same end, and that's, you know, the right performance, you know, for the screen, for the story that we're telling.
What's the one word that you think describes Mickey Mouse best? Mark?
Sincerity.
Oh,
Sincerity.
good word, good choice. And for you, Andreas?
I think I would say charm, which is similar to appeal, but that's what comes to mind when I think of Mickey, his charm.
Well, I'm Mickey Mouse. You know, Mickey Mouse? I hope you've heard of me. I hope.
Well, it's great to have you here, and it's great to have you helping us continue that tradition and looking at Mickey past and present. Thanks very much.